That's going. Okay, so this is Brittney Hanshew. She was born July 20, 1990. She served in Operation Enduring Freedom as a specialist, or E4. This is May 29, 2016, Kentwood, Michigan. She's a family friend, and this interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Okay, so starting out, where and when were you born?
I was born in Sarasota, Florida in July 20th, 1990.
Okay, and you feel free to just take it wherever you want. Like,
okay.
That's what you're supposed to do, just whatever you want to say.
Okay.
Okay, and then so what were your parents' jobs and your siblings?
Yeah, okay. I have a mom and a dad, and I have 3 younger sisters. You were talking about when I was born or current for them?
Current, whatever.
Current, sure. My mom is a secretary. My father owns his own business as an auto repairman. My oldest of my 3 younger sisters, Heather, just came home from college. She is now serving in ministry at a local church. My sister Ashley, underneath that, is a veterinary assistant, is almost married. And my youngest sister, Krista, is still in school but has a culinary degree, and she's going back for education. So they're all up and out of the house.
Okay, so what age were you when you entered the service, and what were you doing directly before you entered the service?
Sure. I was, 2012. I was almost 22. I was working 2 jobs. I was working for my father as a service writer, pretty much management for my dad's shop, and I also was working as a fuel clerk for a Kroger fuel center. So I was working 7 days a week, about close to almost 80 hours a week. I did that for 6 months, and I woke up one day and I said, this is ridiculous. I'm making minimum wage, and in West Virginia at that time it was only $6.25, and I'm like, I still lived with my parents, but I still didn't have enough money for my bills and stuff, so I'm like, this is ridiculous, I need to make a change. So when I was younger, I had always thought about joining the service, but I don't have any family members that are in the military. My 2 great-grandparents were drafted, so they had to go, but other than that, that was it. So I went into the recruiter's office on my lunch break when I was working for my dad, grease all over me. I walked in and I said, where do I sign? And the Army recruiter kind of just looked at me. It's like, are you sure you want to do this? I said, yes. So then they asked me kind of like what kind of job I wanted to do. They asked me if I wanted to be a mechanic. I said, if I still wanted to be a mechanic, I wouldn't be in the Army. That's what I'm doing now. So I signed up and shipped out in October. So I had just turned 22 when I went off to basic training.
So, okay, why did you choose the specific branch that you chose?
Sure, I was in between Navy and Army. This is going to sound really bad, but I didn't want to be a part of the Marine Corps because I thought they were kind of a crazy group of people, and I was like, I'm not that crazy. I mean, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. The Air Force, they always had the stigma of the chair force, like the laid-back, lazy people. I was like, well, I don't want to be the part of them either. Although I have an uncle that was married into the family who served like 30 years and kept saying, go Air Force, go Air Force. And I was like, I'm not going to be part of the chair force. I'm not doing it. So Army and Navy were my 2. I'm not a very good swimmer, and that's part of the requirements for Navy, but it was really cool. My recruiter, he was a retired Navy guy. He did both, and he looked at me, he goes, go Army. So I did it. I was like, okay, I'm going to be Army strong. I'm going to go Army. So that's why I chose it.
Okay, so right after you enlisted, like, what were your thoughts?
Right after I enlisted, because from start to finish, from that morning I woke up and was like, I want to join, to signing the line was 2 weeks. So it was really quick, because you have to take like a test and then have physical done and everything. So I was like, just real quick. I went home and told my parents I signed. My mom about passed out. My dad thought I was crazy. And at that point, I was like, this is really cool. I'm going to be part of the Army. But then the closer I got to my ship date, I started going a little crazy, like, I'm about to be owned by the government. Like, they're going to control my life. But I was really excited, but like really nervous at the same time.
Okay, so for training, where did you go and what was it like?
Okay, in the Army you have basic training and then you have AIT, which is kind of like your job training. Both of mine both my basic and my AIT were at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. So I got there in October, and I didn't leave Leonard Wood until February. So I was there for 5 months for all my training. It was a fun place to be, that's for sure. It was kind of like here, you know how you never know what the weather's going to be like because it changes all the time. Same thing in Missouri.
Okay, so how well did you adapt to military life, like physically and like socially and everything?
Yeah, well, like the first thing they do is they like break you down. Like they make you feel like a number. Because the cool thing with them is they don't want you to have any they want you to be a unit. So they want to build you the way you have to be, like how strong you need to be as a unit. So like the first couple of weeks the first week they call shark attack week. And it's a lot. They're yelling at you all the time. They're stressing you out. Grown men cry. Like, it's a sight. I never cried. But I was second guessing myself at that point in time. But as the weeks go on, the more and more privileges you get and the more and more cool things you get to do. Like, and I had a military friend, he's actually a captain in the Army. He told me before I shipped out, he goes, when it gets stressful, just think, all I have to do is make it to breakfast. And then when you make it to breakfast and you still get stressed out again, all I have to do is make it to lunch. And keep doing that before you know it, the whole day's over. And then not only that, stop and enjoy it. Because it's not every day you get to shoot guns. Or not every day you get to throw hand grenades. And not every day you get to beat somebody up and get paid for it. So just enjoy it. Because it's actually a lot of fun if you take the stressfulness out of it. So I adapted pretty quick because I kept that mentality.
So when you were in training, was that your first time ever shooting a gun?
Oh no. I'm from West Virginia. That's where my family lives. That's where both my mom and dad originally were from. My dad moved to Sarasota, Florida, and my mom went with them. So I grew up there. My family's a hunting family, so yeah, I knew how to break down an AR-15, that's the civilian side, or an M16 or M4 before I even got there. We actually did a race when I got to basic, and I beat everybody breaking down the gun, so it was pretty cool.
Okay, so after your training ended, how long was it until you went abroad to serve, or where you went to serve?
I'm in the Army National Guard, so like after I did my training, I went back home and kind of could resume civilian life. I did kind of like some stateside stuff. So I served in a different sense. For 5 days a week, I went in uniform to my state's JFHQ, which is the Joint Force Headquarters, and I worked with the tech sergeant, the food tech sergeant there, and we did stuff with the Boy Scouts of America. So I kind of started serving there. Then after that wound down, my unit was supposed to be up for deployment, but then they got put on hold, and then they ended up canceling our deployment. And deployments were starting to run down, like they weren't ramping up as much. And although I did my basic training in my AIT, so people felt that I had the right to wear the uniform, but I myself didn't feel so because I hadn't deployed, I hadn't seen combat. So I actively started searching out deployments. There was actually a group from Missouri, headed back to Missouri, who was deploying, and they were looking for additional operators, because I operate heavy equipment in the Army, like bulldozer, Hi-Axes, dump trucks, stuff like that. They were looking for 18 additional people. So I signed up, and I actually was the only female from West Virginia who went and deployed with this unit in Missouri, and that's when we headed over to Afghanistan.
Okay, how long were you in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan, I was there for about 6 months. In the actual in-country is what they call it.
Were you only there once? Have you gone back multiple times, or was it just the one time?
No, just the one time.
Okay, so, okay. Okay, when you were over there, how did you stay in touch with your relatives and your loved ones?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be on an air base, so it was really built up. It was huge. They actually had buses that would like come around certain times and pick you up and take you from one end to the other. So fortunately, there was a lot of modern conveniences there. They had the commissary you could go in and they had internet. So it cost money. I had to pay a fee every month. I think I paid like $60 a month to have internet. And I would Skype my parents, or I would use an app called Viber, which is kind of like a phone app. Kind of you could text and call through it. And so anytime I could, the connection wasn't always the greatest. Plus the time zone didn't always work out. But I would call and talk to them, and of course my family and loved ones sent me care packages. So they always had the goods, that's for sure.
Okay, so how was your time in Afghanistan different from your time during training?
It's a lot different because when you go through your basic training, it's a lot of combat oriented, like teaching you how to fight, how to shoot, stuff like that, so you're ready, kind of grounded in you. And then when I did my operating training, it was a week per equipment, so we didn't get a lot of hands-on. But when I went overseas, we left the Kandahar Air Base, the nice plush area, and we actually convoyed to a FOB, which is a forward operating base. It's just a very, very small base, and we are actually using equipment to tear it down. So I was in equipment all day, every day. So it varied because I became very good with the equipment, as opposed to just using it for a week. Plus we had a task. Before I was like, okay, pick up this rock, move it there, great, you know how to use the equipment. This time it's like, look, this building needs to be done and gone by today, kind of deal. So you added a little pressure. Fortunately for me, I didn't have to see a lot of combat, so I didn't have to really worry about the basic training end of it. So I'm sure if I needed to, it would just muscle memory happen, but that's probably the biggest variance is a lot more project oriented and not so much survival oriented.
Okay, so what was the biggest difference from your life before the military and how has your life changed from now being in the military than it was before you joined?
Yeah, for sure. I think before the military, my life was a little more carefree, or more so I didn't understand the privileges I had. Or even though I was working, those 7 days a week but I was doing it for things that I wanted. It wasn't, for things that I needed. Now, I've come to appreciate things like hot showers a lot. I'm always watching behind me. That's another thing. My awareness is heightened. And I don't do crowds very well anymore. Fireworks are a no-go for me. Gunpowder sounds the same whether it's coming in, cool colors or if someone's shooting at you. So, in that sense, I'm a little more jumpy. But I have a greater appreciation for life, that's for sure. I tend to now live life more to the fullest. Like, hey, I want to go see this place. Well, then I'm going to go see it. Or I'm going to go do it. And I'm going to enjoy life. So that's a good thing. I'm not so focused on the small things or, I won't say partying. I wasn't a huge partier, but just kind of just throwing my life away beforehand. Now I'm like, I want to make it mean something. So that's the biggest.
Okay, so what is your job now?
Yeah, right now I'm still in the National Guard, so I do that. I go once a month to my base and I drill. So I still am technically in the Army. I also am a department head, or pretty much a manager of sorts, at Home Depot for the paint department.
Okay. Okay, how have your relationships been influenced by your service in the military, or have they been influenced?
Yeah, they have. I actually was engaged before I deployed. A few weeks before I came home, that ended because they couldn't handle the stress of deployments and everything. So that kind of took a toll on me a little bit. Also, it also heightened, but in a plus side, it made the relationship between myself and my dad a lot better. It made him realize that I could be gone the next day, so we should probably become better friends again. So that's been a plus for sure. But other than that, I've always been a person who can make friends with anyone, and that hasn't changed one bit.
Okay, going back to Afghanistan quickly.
Yeah.
While you were there, did you ever have like any off time, like times you just didn't have anything to do, and if so, what did you end up doing?
Yeah, I did. I had when I was on Kandahar, when I wasn't at FOB Pusab, I had quite a bit of off time. We kind of worked shift work. In my off time, I spent either Skyping or talking to my family, especially making sure I checked in with my grandparents because they were always worrying about me. Or I actually had a guitar sent over because I play guitar, and I would play guitar around like a circle group, and a bunch of us would sing and make up songs or listen to music, kind of just something that reminded us of home. We also would play cards, smoke cigars. We had Cigar Fridays. We would smoke cigars around a little burn pit. Drink Mountain Dew, but it's not the same Mountain Dew here. It's Mountain Dew Company, but it's made like completely different. And just try to enjoy it. We bring our care packages together and pick out of everyone's care package and kind of just enjoy it, but kind of do the same thing you would do here, but there, in a sense.
Did you ever interact with the people from Afghanistan, or was it all like just on base?
No. Well, there are Afghanistan people on the bases. We provide them jobs. So they do certain jobs. There's also the ANA, which is the Afghan Army, which are the people we're teaching to try to take over for their own country once we leave. And we train closely with them. Also, really cool thing that we did, like we tore down buildings and stuff, but we would make piles so the nationals could come in and get wood to build houses and stuff. We kind of like repurposed it, so we got to interact with them some too.
Okay, what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned from your service, or that you're still learning?
The biggest thing I learned is hurry up and wait. There's a lot of that. They want you here at this certain time, but by the time they get there, they don't really know what they're doing yet. That's probably the biggest. Patience. Lots of patience. Let things roll off your back, because when you're next to people all the time, I mean, you got siblings, you know how it is. You're with them all the time, the littlest things annoy you, and then you want to like hit each other and hate each other, but then you still have to work together. So it's like a family. So it's like, just be patient with people, let things roll off your back. That was probably the biggest things that I learned for sure.
And do you have any advice for people who are thinking about joining the military, or just for people in general based on what you learned?
Yeah. Word of advice: don't trust your recruiters. They lie. No, I had a really good one. But the biggest thing is, like it said earlier, when you sign up, take the day by day. Enjoy the things you're doing, because it's not every day you get paid, like I said, to throw hand grenades or shoot or anything like that. Take advantage of the systems that they give you, the benefits. I mean, you got the tuition reimbursement, or they'll pay for your college. Enjoy the life experiences. Like, I've been to Missouri, Romania, Afghanistan, New Hampshire, Texas, New Mexico, all with the Army. I would never have been able to go there, on my own dime. Just enjoy it. If you're going to do it, make your branch proud. Don't do anything stupid that people are going to attach the Army, the Navy, or whatever to, and do everything to your best ability and have everyone's back all the time.
Okay, so you mentioned Romania and like New Mexico and Texas. What did you do in each of those places?
Sure. In Texas and New Mexico, there's a base there called Fort Bliss. It's a very large base. It actually goes from Texas into New Mexico, and that is where I did my pre-mob, which is pre-mobilization to go to Afghanistan. I was there for a little over a month, and that's where we did like training for our equipment, or emergency medevacs. We did training there, so I spent time there doing more training. Romania, I was there a few days to do in-processing to Afghanistan, because we take like a charter to Romania. We'd stay there a few days so they could get a military plane to come pick us up, to take us there, and then the same when we went home. It was an in processing and out processing through the combat zone or through the theater that we went through. So I didn't really do too much in Romania, but chill and wait pretty much, and was bored out of my gourd, that's for sure.
Okay, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to say, or?